Alright, let's settle this. The Redmi Note 14 or Samsung Galaxy A16. They both fall under the same price category and they have a few things in common, the most notable being the processor. So, which of these is the better value for money? We'll go straight to the point with this one, starting with the price. But before that, if you wish to see detailed individual reviews of these devices, I'll add links in the description and in the video cards. The video will focus mostly on how they compare, so you can choose which best suits your need. On the pricing, they are both around $150. The Redmi Note 14 has a base version with 6GB of RAM and 128GB of storage. With the Samsung Galaxy A16, the base version is 4GB of RAM, but I won't recommend that. Should the Samsung be your preference by the end of this video, you should go for the 6GB as the minimum. I'll state the reason later. Here in Nigeria, there is about 5k difference in price between the 6GB version of the Samsung and the Redmi. But when it comes to value offering, Redmi has the edge. It comes with a charging brick, a case, and pre-installed film screen protector. The Samsung only comes with a cable, so yeah, with the Galaxy A16, you'll need to spend some more funds after purchasing. Design eventually comes down to personal preference, and I'd say both phones look great. I love that Redmi opted for a matte finish with the Note 14, although they went back to the design of the Note 12, but that is not a problem. The Galaxy A16, well, looks like the A15, which also looks like the A14. You get the gist. It's the typical Samsung design language. On the display, however, you can see the obvious U-notch with the Samsung, which is not really something they can be applauded for. Both phones have 5G versions should you prefer something with 5G, but only the Samsung Galaxy A16 gets the 5G version in this region. The Redmi Note 14 5G is not available in Nigeria. In terms of build quality, both phones are solid, but only Xiaomi is promoting the toughness of the Note 14, so maybe it's tougher. Both are IP54 certified for dust and splash resistance. One more area where the Note 14 edges out the Galaxy A16 is in the presence of a headphone jack. That is missing from the A16. Another thing missing is stereo speakers. While the A16 has good sounding mono speaker, the Redmi Note 14 produces the better sound thanks to the presence of dual stereo speakers. The Redmi also has the signature IR blaster, a handy feature for your electronic devices. The fingerprint sensor on both devices work well to unlock the device. If you prefer the side-mounted type, the Samsung is your pick. If an optical scanner is your preference, then the Redmi offers that. On the display side of things, they both sport AMOLED and are vibrant and bright enough for use outdoors, but the Note 14 gets the higher peak brightness at 1800 nits compared to 800 on the A16. As mentioned earlier, and just restating the obvious, the U-notch is a hill Samsung is willing to die on for the lower A series, so we have the Redmi Note 14 with a better looking display design. The refresh rate is also higher on the Redmi at 120Hz compared to 90 on the Galaxy A16. Not looking good for Samsung when it comes to value offering, it seems. There is no charging brick, no headphone jack, no stereo speakers, U-notch, lower refresh rate display, the list goes on. But that doesn't make the A16 an unworthy device. It's got some tricks up its sleeves and it is probably looking to replicate the success in sales of the A15. Now, whether these tricks are enough to make it the better device is entirely up to you. For starters, it gets more OS upgrades. That is 6 years of software upgrades compared to 4 on the Redmi Note 14. Technically, the Redmi gets 6 years of support, but only 4 Android version upgrades. The Redmi fans can always make the argument that 4 years down the line, both devices might not be recommendable, but 6 is greater than 4. It is what it is. Both devices are currently on Android 14 for reasons best known to the respective brands. It is One UI 6.1 on the Samsung and HyperOS version 1 on the Redmi. From my experience, I've had smoother and lag-free experience with the software on the Redmi Note 14 than on the Galaxy A16. As is common with One UI on Samsung budget phones, there are subtle lags on the A16. Another area the A16 lacks in the software experience is the missing default screen recorder application. Of course, you can always install one from the Play Store, but that is a basic feature and should come with every phone. Still on the software experience, you get way more bloatware on the Redmi Note 14 and ads too. If you're not careful during setup, you might even end up with way more bloatware. On performance, both devices support the same processor, the MediaTek Helio G99. For the Redmi, it's an upgrade from the Snapdragon 685 on its predecessor, but for the Samsung, it is the same as was on the A15. The G99, while old, is still a reliable processor that has been well optimized to handle most of what you'd expect of a budget phone in this category. Other phones in this price range though have the newer Helio G100, so if you're looking for something with a more recent processor, you can look to the Tecno Spark 30 Pro or Infinix Hot 50 Pro Plus. But back to what we have here. Both phones will handle multitasking and day-to-day use just fine. As I mentioned earlier, with the Samsung you want to avoid the 4GB version. The gaming performance is also similar thanks to the presence of the same chipset. I experienced no heating issues while using either phone for gaming. If you do long gaming sessions, regardless of which you get, there will be noticeable increase in temperature, but nothing abnormal. On battery specifications, the Redmi Note 14 sports the bigger 5500 mAh battery to the Galaxy A16's 5000. While both phones will last the average user a full day of use, you should get a couple more hours of battery life on the Redmi Note 14, which also gets the faster 33 watts charging to Samsung's 25 watts. And the Redmi gets the charging brick in the box. On cameras, the Redmi gets the higher 108 megapixel main camera to Samsung's 15 megapixels, but from the results you can't easily tell which was taken on a higher resolution camera. The Galaxy A16 offers more versatility thanks to the presence of an ultra-wide camera. Though just 5 megapixels, it is better than none. On the selfie camera, both phones do okay, and you can get the best out of the Redmi when you turn off the default beauty filters. Both phones can only record videos at a maximum resolution of 1080p, but only the Redmi can go up to 1080p 60fps on its rear cameras. Okay, so we're trying to see which of these phones takes the better video from the selfie camera. Note that the Redmi has 20 megapixels selfie camera, which is higher than the 13 megapixels on the Samsung. From viewfinder, it looks as if the Samsung is brighter, but I mean, when we send it out of the system, we'll be able to tell which does the better job overall. But you tell me in the comments from what you can see. Both can do no more than 1080p 30fps, so here it is. One more thing to note is that I've experienced some lag on the camera software of the Redmi Note 14. It is noticeable and can be annoying. So, which is the better device? Or the right question will be, which is the best for you? The Redmi Note 14 has the better looking display, higher refresh rates, bigger battery, faster charging, headphone jack, stereo speakers, but no ultra-wide camera and lesser amount of OS upgrades. The Samsung Galaxy A16 on the other hand has cleaner software, longer software support, and an ultra-wide camera. But the U-notch, lack of accessories in the box, no headphone jack, and lower refresh rate kinda holds it back. So, would you pick the Redmi Note 14 or the Samsung Galaxy A16 4G? Peace out.